Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and anybody else that happens to be stumbling across the channel, we are back today with QRC, and today we're going to go over the MCX Spear LT. But before we do, let's go ahead and give a shout out to our channel sponsor, Spartan Arms Las Vegas. If you happen to be in the area, check out Spartan Arms. They have great prices and deals on accessories and everything else you need. Check them out on Instagram or at their website at spartanarmslv.com. The Spear MCX LT. Okay, anyways, back to you guys. The MCX Spear LT. I've been playing around with these for a little while, and we're gonna actually combine two of them today. We have the 300 Blackout in 9-inch, and we have the 11.5 and 5.56. I have a good amount of rounds through the 300 Blackout versions of the MCXs. One thing I will mention too, so I typically put brakes, muzzle brakes on my 300s. I also typically run them short. The longest barrel 300 I ran is a 9-inch, and that's actually the Spear LT. Well, I take that back. No, yeah, that's the longest one I've ran. Yeah, I think 9.5 was the longest I ran in DI. I don't remember. Brakes don't work as well when you start creeping up towards 9-inch. They do work great when you're having them on a 6 3/4 inch or a 5.5 inch rattler, but as you start to creep forward, obviously there's not as much gas blasting through that brake, so it doesn't flatten it out as much. Just a side note that I figured out. Well, probably should have known that. Now, I will say, if you happen to have a Gen 2 or a current rattler, should you upgrade to a 9-inch LT, you know what? I'm gonna be completely transparent. I don't think so. I think you're probably better served with what you have, and if you don't have one, then get one. But if you do, I wouldn't say it's that big of a change. The 9-inch versus the 11.5, the weight difference. So the 9-inch 300 is a little bit lighter actually, but where the weight difference gets made up is when you insert a magazine. Obviously 300 Blackout is going to be heavier than 5.56, so that's when it starts to tip a little bit past. So just a little side note, if you guys are counting ounces like I do, that's where that's going to have that shift. The Spear LT in 300 or in 5.56, 11.5, they're actually lighter than the Rattler. I picked them up. You guys can believe me or not, but I've been at Ventura Munitions, I've been at other local gun shops and had the two sitting next to each other and picked them up. I'm like, whoa, this feels kind of lighter. And then I'll have someone else that has two ends that are working and do it, and they'll be like, yeah, one is lighter than the other and this one looks lighter. Let's talk about the 5.56. Full disclosure, Sig did send out the 5.56 and the MCX Spear for us to play with. It was the first time me shooting a 5.56 MCX. I've always had 300 Blackout. Until the LT series, I didn't really have a reason to go 5.56 just because everything was kind of heavy. The 5.56 and 11.5 is light enough for me to run, enough to collect some data on it and everything else. Not light enough for me to do much else because it does get heavy, but it's significantly lighter than the other gens. Like I said, that next to other things at the gun store, it is on the lighter weight category. So the 11.5 is pretty smooth. I was actually kind of surprised. Now granted, the ammunition we're using is a little bit lower powered right now, and that's just to be able to run drills up close on some of the steel targets. I guess how I would compare it is this. At one point I had a 416 and I had a heavier buffer in there to kind of smooth things out a little bit. It kind of felt like smooth like that. Not like a Knight's smooth, not like a very well-tuned SR15 smooth, but more like a tuned 416 smooth. So some of the smoothness was definitely attributed to the weight of that piston system. DI, it's just different. You don't have a lot of weight up front versus piston. It changes things, and that does, with that balance, smooth things out or just keep the front end low. However you want to look at it, but that is how it felt to me, and that's with one hand running it. The trigger was okay. Would I change it out for Geisley? Probably, but the trigger wasn't bad. We didn't experience any malfunctions or anything else with that. For what they're at street price now, when you can go to dealers at like $24, $25, it's a great deal. I'll be honest, that's a pretty damn good deal. The thing that I like about the MCX is just how modular it is. So if you get an upper receiver, as long as you have that, you've opened up the door to get so many different configurations. Now, I have friends that are more like, oh, I want multiple upper receivers and multiple optics zeroed for whatever, that's great. I can appreciate that, and I understand exactly why. For me, I'd rather just have one upper receiver, one lower, and then just have it as many barrel and rail combinations as I want. That is the benefit to the M6 line and the modularity to it. As stated, though, I will say that the 5.56 was kind of surprising to me, and I shoot a lot of well-tuned DI guns. That would have kept up, and plus the added benefit to being a piston. Like I said, I ran that without a muzzle brake on it or anything else. It was just a Sig flash hider. But I will say, like I said, for a one-handed guy, it was a pretty smooth rhythm I could keep up with that. Would I buy an MCX 11.5 Spear LT? Yes. That one I would say is probably worth it. As stated, it depends on which one you're going with and if you're starting off fresh. If you're starting off fresh, either or of those options will work great for you. But if you already have something and you're trying to replace something or upgrade something, I'd say an upgrade to the 11.5 5.56 is probably an upgrade that makes sense. If you're just trying to get another 300 Blackout, doesn't make sense. I don't know. I'm tough with 300 Blackout, man. So another thing, to answer some questions that have been asked in the comments. So my right arm, it's paralyzed. I got hit by a pickup truck on my motorcycle a few years ago. He blew a stop sign. It's about 5 years ago. I landed on my neck, pulled my arm out of my spinal column. Tried to do some stem cell to see if I could fix it, and I think I'm finally at that point in my life where I'm willing to accept that, it might be gone for good. So what you guys see out here is just a dude that's just trying not to let it impact his life too much, even though it does. I'm still out here getting after it. So it's tough. It's not easy, but it's the way life is sometimes. If I'm being honest with you guys, I'm not just super tough or anything like that. It's not easy, but you can't let it take everything from you. So it's already took enough. Can't take it all. So, all right. Well, we touched base on that. I answered some things. My apologies for taking so long to bring you guys that answer, but sometimes I just get into it when I'm filming other things. But we have gone over that. We have touched base on the MCX Spear LT, and we have basically touched base on everything for today. So with that being said, we will see you guys next time on QRC.